The NBA trade deadline has come and gone, and Rob Pelinka absolutely cooked. We're breaking down the NBA trade deadline. We got winners and losers, some more rumors on the buyout market. Where could Ben Simmons go? That's coming up next on The Big Lead. What is up, and welcome to The Big Lead. My name is Doug McKain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. The biggest stories in all of sports, you're going to find it here every single Monday through Friday. Less than an hour, you'll get your fix. If you're talking about it, if they're talking about it, if it's going down in the world of sports, we're breaking it down here on The Big Lead. But we've got a jam-packed show, so let's get into it. Because the NBA trade deadline this year was pure cinema. It was electric. It was like the NBA we knew and loved in the past. We saw deals get done, but the biggest winner of the trade deadline was the Los Angeles Lakers because they were not done yet. They went out there and they got exactly what Luka Doncic wanted. Luka had a meeting with the organization, and what did he ask for? He asked for a lob threat. He asked for a rim-running center to try to round out this roster, and that's exactly what the Lakers got with Mark Williams. And you're seeing a guy that, sure, he has missed over 60% of the games he's played, but when he's right, this is someone who can absolutely take this Lakers team to another level because of the ability to give you the high pick and roll action with Luka Doncic with his per 36 numbers. If you look at them, they're pretty jaw-dropping. I mean, I saw a lot of people talking about Mark Williams yesterday. A lot of people having takes on Mark Williams. I'm like, how much did you actually see Mark Williams for you to actually have a take on him? But I talked to some people that cover the Hornets, and the first thing they point out to me it was his per 36 numbers. And his per 36, he averages 22, 14, 4 assists, almost 2 blocks. He's efficient. And on top of that, you showed Luka Doncic, who coveted a player like him, and you get him the guy he wanted, someone that can do that. And then let's also point out the fact that you used the assets that you used by the bad move that the Mavs made, right? I mean, the Lakers end up getting him in a deal that included Dalton Knecht, Cam Reddish, the Lakers' unprotected 2031 first-round pick, and a 2030 pick swap. And that's a great move for the Lakers, just for the simple fact that now they went from a team that had a very small chance of making a deep run in the playoffs, a team that could have been a 6 seed, to a team that, if you look at their odds right now to win the title, they're 6th. They're 6th right now when you look at their odds. They're right behind the Celtics, the Thunder, the Cavs, the Knicks, and the Nuggets. So the Lakers, they absolutely cooked, and I think you got to give all the credit to Rob Pelinka. If there's anyone out there that is doubting Rob Pelinka at this point, here's your apology form. You can fill that out, and we know that Pat Riley has been known as the Godfather. Now we have the Rob Father, the guy that robs players, franchise players, generational stars from other teams like Pelinka did with Luka Doncic. And yes, I see people out there saying, oh, this was an overpay. This is an overpay. If you think this was an overpay for a center that they needed to pair with this group, and that's not going to be until 2031, then you just don't know ball. Period. End of story, point blank. Dalton Knecht at this point is not going to do very much for you with this current group. And yes, he has definitely a lot of talent, and I think the Hornets are kind of winners and all this with the picks they got, but still, this is a major, major dub for the Los Angeles Lakers. But we got my man, J-Rob. J-Rob, what's your reaction to that Mark Williams trade?
I absolutely loved it. D-Mac, this was a trade that I didn't think would be able to get done. But this is the type of center I thought would be perfect to pair alongside Luka Doncic. Ironically enough, do you know, Mark Williams, fun fact, is 5 months younger than Dalton Knecht. So not only did you get a younger player for the player that you just drafted, but you also were able to get somebody who fits within the system of who you're playing with. I mean, you've seen LeBron in 2020 with explosive and athletic bigs. You've seen Luka Doncic with explosive and athletic bigs. Mark Williams, he might be, outside of Luka Doncic, he's probably the player on this roster that's going to benefit the most of playing alongside LeBron James and Luka Doncic, where you can be looking at this thing in 8 years, and we're talking about Mark Williams is one of the, I don't want to say put him like with the Kareems and Shaqs of the world, but he'll be a very notable big man in the future just because of where you're getting him. He's only 23 years old.
Young guy, long-term fit. The highs are there. A lot of big men get injured. And yes, of course, that is the caveat, is the fact that he's missed a significant amount of time. But I think what the Lakers are looking at was the upside. I mean, he's appeared in just 85 games over his first 3 seasons, and it's been due to a variety of injuries. I think the other con you could point at, too, is despite his length, despite that 7+ foot frame where his standing wingspan is actually longer than Victor Wembanyama, he is actually, if you look at the advanced stuff, he is one of the worst rim protectors in the NBA. But I do think that defensively you can put him in positions to optimize his talent. Hopefully he can be an anchor to the basket that they're hoping. And you got to feel bad for Anthony Davis, man. AD had a center on his wish list for years and years. He saw what it was like to play the 4 in 2020. They win a championship because of that mainly. And then they go out there and they replace him, and then you get a center that's only going to help this team. But, I mean, this was huge because, look, this is the Luka Doncic franchise. And to think that LeBron James is your second option, I don't think people are saying that enough. That LeBron James is the Lakers' second option because they have Luka Doncic now. And Luka has had success with athletic, lob-catching centers. The Mavs were constructed around Luka with Derek Lively, with Daniel Gafford. They had success in the postseason last year with a similar type of big. So Mark Williams was not mentioned by anyone. There's a lot of Laker insiders out there. None of them mentioned any of this. None of them mentioned Mark Williams once. They said every name but Mark Williams. So I think you got to give credit to Rob Pelinka for keeping things close to the vest. I think if you are a naysayer in this one, you're probably saying, well, I mean, you traded away your first-round pick for Williams that you definitely saved, that the Mavs were stupid to not gain from you, but that's the last tradable pick for a year. So if someone comes up that they're interested in, you don't have that pick. So this roster is essentially set, but this move also shows LeBron James that not only did you trade for the future with Luka, but you also traded for the now. And I think that's a major piece in all this as well, because you're sending the message to LeBron that, hey, look, don't take it the hard way. We still think you want to be a part of this franchise. We want to see you end your career in LA, but we are going to contend this year. We are going to go for it this year. And I think that this Lakers team, they're dangerous. We haven't seen Luka on the court, LeBron yet. We haven't seen Mark Williams, and if he can stay healthy. But the Lakers were a massive winner of this. Okay, I mean, they were a team that, like I just said, they were floundering. They were going to potentially go in the play-in game. They've beyond 9-2 in their last 11, and they're in the 6th seed. But with this group as constructed, no one was out there saying, okay, this is a team that's going to contend with the Thunder, the Cavs, the Knicks potentially, the better teams in the Western Conference, the Nuggets. Now they have the 6th best odds. And this week, the Lakers, they got a perennial MVP candidate, an up-and-coming 7-foot shooter for Anthony Davis, 2 picks in a pick swap. This was a generational run for Rob Pelinka. Get the statue made now. He secured the Lakers' future. And what we need to talk about now, though, is the Dallas Mavericks, because the Mavericks are my first loser in my winners and losers, because it's been a couple of days. It doesn't make any more sense. I've seen Mavericks fans take some copium, try to find a way to make sense of all this, saying that, okay, maybe this is a Anthony Davis versus Luka, and he can help you win in year one now. That's like wanting 2005 Shaq over 2005 Kobe. I mean, you could win a title in the next 1 or 2 years, but Luka, you can win a title for the next decade. And then you add the fact that you're losing fans. The Mavericks have lost over 1 million followers in the last 48 hours. Mavericks fans have shown up with coffins. Mavericks fans have shown up giving away their season tickets, and you're basically giving away your franchise player, the best player that's ever played for your organization, for less than market value for, one of the best 5 to 10, 25-year-olds that we've ever seen in the history of the sport. They're a big loser. And the more I think about this, I truly do believe that Mavs fans were sacrificed for the betterment of the NBA. That Mavs fans and that organization sacrificed themselves for an NBA that has gotten a shot in the arm, an NBA that got absolutely a life raft sent to them in the form of Luka Doncic to the Lakers. It's Super Bowl week. No one's talking about the Super Bowl, and it has a Patrick Mahomes going for a three-peat, okay? It's a Philly market with Jalen Hurts that has a lot of buzz before this. It's all about the association, and it's because of Luka Doncic. Now, one thing I want to talk to you guys about is a theory that, I don't know if you see this, J-Rob, but there's this theory that I'm buying more into that has to do with the Mavericks owners, the Adelsons, and their plan to build the so-called, quote, Venetian Dallas. Now, this was on social media, a big theories guy. You'll know that about me on this show. So I want to get into this one because I'm really starting to believe this. That's the only way that I think we can make sense of this. Now, this is from his social media post. The lifelong Mavericks fan, he proposed, it's a very intriguing theory, that the Vegas-based casino family that bought the team in 2023, the Adelsons, they secretly wanted to tank the Mavericks franchise in order to force the Texas legislator to let the Adelson family build resort casinos within the borders of Texas. Now, sports gambling is illegal for the state of Texas. You have over 30 million people in the Lone Star State. Sports betting is illegal. You can't do it there. And the Adelsons, their plan is to build the so-called Venetian Dallas, and they can't go forward with that plan unless the Texas government reverses their stance that it's held for decades against sports gambling. Now, if you look into it, pretty much everyone surrounding that, their government, their legislature, it's a very bleak picture when it comes to the Adelson and the gambling backers in the 2025 vote that's right around the corner. But if it gets to the Texas Senate floor, there's a chance this could be overturned. And the decision is ultimately held by the Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, not the sports broadcaster, one of my goats, who has refused to play ball this entire time. He's very anti this because he doesn't have that support from the Senate GOP. So to get momentum, the theory is that the Adelsons, they could turn to plan B, which is to weaken the Dallas Mavericks to try to threaten to move them to Vegas. So the theory is that the Adelsons put the word into Nico Harrison, says, hey, we want this gambling money. We want the Venetian Dallas. We know that as long as we have Luka, we're going to have sold-out arenas. We're going to compete for a title. He's our guy. Don't even start a bidding war, because if you start a bidding war and you get better players and better draft picks, the Mavericks could be better in the short term and the long term. Go out there and call the Lakers and get us Anthony Davis, a guy that has missed significant time, that's towards the end of his prime. Pair him with Kyrie Irving, and let's see what happens. Now, there was what he said on his podcast, this guy. He said, I think they want the threat of Vegas and the reality of a monopoly on casino gambling in Dallas-Fort Worth. In my view, what they wanted was to trade Luka was not for Anthony Davis and a single first-round pick. They traded Luka for a credible threat in 2027 and maybe 2029 moving to Vegas. So that's fascinating to me. I mean, they recently put together a $13.7 million package in political donations the Adelson family did for pro-gambling efforts in the state, but it's going to be very difficult to flip that in Texas. So maybe you do what teams have done in the past. We saw what happened in Seattle, where they moved the Sonics to the Thunder. We've seen the Sacramento Kings used as leverage to try to move. It's a very big leverage play. I'm 100% here for it. This Adelson lady in her weird glasses and her weird-ass hair, she looks kind of like Cruella de Vil. And instead of the 101 Dalmatians, it's this Mavericks franchise. But I'm 100% here for this theory, and I'm going to be following this closely. I went down a really crazy rabbit hole on Reddit, as you can see, J-Rob.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting theory. And to be honest, I'm kind of with it because anything that I can come up with a Harrison in that front office just doesn't make sense to me. What you just told me makes way more sense to me than anything that Nico Harrison and his group cooked up. Honestly, Doug, when I think about it, this might be a good move for that family because when you look back, you might need another majority owner, somebody to pour money into this team if you do move into Vegas. And what NBA superstar has talked about, he wants to put an NBA team in Las Vegas, LeBron James. And then in a few years, in 5 years, that family can say, well, didn't we help you get Luka? Didn't you win 2 more championships? It might all be coming full circle. You might be onto something, Doug.
Hey, I'm just saying, man, how do you go from Mark Cuban, who said, I mean, if I would rather, we're being my divorce attorney rather than trading away Luka Doncic to trading him for pennies on the dollar doesn't make sense. And if you're Nico Harrison, either this is the move or you're an absolute idiot. I mean, which is it? So, I mean, only time will tell. But you have to say that as good as Anthony Davis is, the Mavericks are the big losers in this, and this is a preposterous trade beyond belief. We talked about enough on this show, but only time will tell. We'll see. I mean, hey, AD, shut us up and go out there and win a title if you can. But let's go down the list and talk about some of these other trades, starting with Jimmy Butler. So my next winner is Jimmy Butler. Why is Jimmy Butler a winner? Well, the soap opera in Miami is over. He's in Golden State, and it was all about money. Jimmy Butler didn't want to play because he didn't have a contract. He got his money. He was looking for it. He got it. He got an extension with the Golden State Warriors, a 2-year, $121 million extension. And he's going to be in the Bay Area, playing with Steph, playing with Draymond. Maybe he contends, maybe he doesn't. But the number one thing he wanted was to get paid and get out of that situation in Miami. And look, at the end of the day, it didn't work out. Before the season started, when Pat Riley was asked about an extension with Jimmy Butler, he said that, hey, we're not going to pay guys that aren't available every night. And the second I saw that from Pat Riley, I said, shots fired. Shots fired. And Jimmy Butler is not going to play 100% every single night without a contract. So Jimmy has to be a winner. Do I think the Warriors are a team that's a winner? I actually do. I actually do think they're a winner all of this just because their future was bleak, right? I mean, their championship window was very, very close to being slammed shut. This pries it open like a tiny, tiny bit. Could get a finger through there at this point. I mean, they were a team that had a 0.1 chance to win the NBA Finals before this trade. And you put Jimmy Butler alongside Steph Curry, alongside Draymond Green, and he gives you secondary scoring, gives you ball handling, and that's what the Warriors lack right now. And it's tough to compare any offense to what the Warriors do, egalitarian, a lot of movement. But the Miami Heat, if you had to pick a second one that kind of mirrored what they do in Golden State, the Heat have an offense that, if you kind of squint, you might see a little Golden State Warriors in that. And Golden State, they are 25th in the NBA in points in the paint. Can Jimmy still do that? Yes. Can Jimmy Butler still get to the rim? Yes. Can Jimmy Butler still get to the line? Yes. The Warriors, 28th in the association at free throw rate. So a lot of the things that the Warriors have lacked, for as up and down as Jimmy Butler's season has gone, he still checks those boxes off for them. And I think the combination with Draymond too, defensively, really unlocks some schemes for them. A lot of movement, a lot of switching, and I think that the way that Steve Kerr is going to deploy them is going to be an asset on defense as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Warriors kind of won. I mean, I wouldn't give them an A, especially because they got their plan B in Jimmy Butler because they originally wanted Kevin Durant, and Steph talked to KD. Clearly, KD didn't want to be moved. There's been reports that he was blindsided by that, but I think this is a good move for the Warriors. Happy for Jimmy Butler. Gets out of Miami. Do I think the Warriors are going to contend? I do not, but at least they're a little interesting. What say you, J-Rob?
It's not a championship move in the standpoint of, like, I can't see them hoisting the trophy this year. Think they probably need one more piece. Good for Jimmy Butler, getting the money he was looking for, got extended immediately, getting a clearly above $60 million a season. So good for him. My biggest worry, though, is I was hoping that the Warriors would also get another scorer off the bench. I was hoping like a name like a Cam Thomas would have been real interesting to go there, because I think the one thing about that system that you talked about is it's very Curry centric. And I think for the other players within that system, they kind of get lost within it. And you need kind of like a scorer's mentality to find your shot within that Steve Kerr Warrior system. A lot with Jordan Poole being able to flourish within it. I would have loved Cam Thomas to be shipped to the Warriors along with Jimmy Butler, because I feel like the move would have been a bit better. I don't know if I would have said a contender with Cam Thomas, but I would have liked the flow of the offense. I think you would have got a lot more scoring. But I do think Jimmy Butler does fit for what they needed.
Yeah, and I think, too, he's not going to disrupt the culture. They wouldn't let that happen. I mean, Draymond would probably punch him. I mean, that'd be a good fight.
They both fight each other.
They both fight. That'd be a good fight. I would like to see that in the octagon. I kind of got Jimmy, though, some weird reason. Jimmy looks like he's the real deal, man. But
they come from the same cloth. It might work out, honestly.
Yeah, Midwest dudes, Michigan State versus Marquette. Yeah, absolutely. Now, as far as the compensation go, interesting thing is the protected first-round pick that the Warriors gave up, it isn't nothing. I want to point that out. If the draft were tomorrow, that protected first-round pick that the Warriors gave up would be interesting. It'd be in the lottery at pick number 14. But with Jimmy Butler, you have to assume that the Warriors are going to be a better team, win more games. So it's not like they're worse now. They're actually better. So that pick is probably going to drop to the middle of the first round, possibly in the low 20s if things go right. So there's that. Now, whether it be Jimmy Butler or someone else, they were going to have to find a way to add a piece that at least gives them some hope. He's that guy. Now, as far as Andrew Wiggins is, I think, a little bit of a loss for the Warriors. But I mean, Schroeder was bad for the Warriors. Is kind of an isolation scorer, not great in their offense. He just doesn't fit into Golden State's motion offense, that scheme they run. But yeah, I think that the other thing too. Last point on the Warriors is, had you have gotten Kevin Durant, you would have to give up a small fortune. It would have cost a lot more. I also would have made them more intriguing, though. I mean, I think that kind of get the band back together and you try to go after it one more time. But KD, he said nope. He refused to reunite with Curry and Draymond Green. So they got the best option that was available to them. He can improve their perimeter defense, can knock down some threes, he can provide some shot creation. Warriors need all that, and he brings that. But I will say, if he complains about the Warriors, I'm done with Jimmy Butler. He'll lose all credibility. He's lost most credibility as far as how he handled the Heat situation. But if everywhere you go stinks, you're the one that stinks, my man. And we'll see. I think he's got a lot to prove, too. Now, as far as the loser goes, I kind of have to go with the Heat. And I'll tell you why. It's not because of the Jimmy Butler trade. It's because of how closely they were linked to Kevin Durant. I mean, for a couple hours there, we were pretty excited about the possibility of Kevin Durant going to the Miami Heat. That's a team that certainly could benefit. KD kind of feels like a Heat player, especially late in his career. And then another thing, too, the Heat, if you look at their pick situation, they owe their first-round pick in 2025 to the Thunder, their 2027 first-round pick to the Hornets. Those are lottery protected, but if the Heat miss the playoffs, those picks will go up a year and they'll become unprotected. So the last thing that the Heat want to do is to have two unprotected picks and you're not winning games as you're trying to rebuild after Jimmy Butler's gone. So I think the pro is you get out from underneath Jimmy Butler and a potential extension that you ultimately were never going to sign with him. But the con is possibly, hey, if things don't go your way based on those unprotected picks and those first-round pick situations, you will lose some of those assets.
I definitely agree with that part of it. I will say, I think sometimes you win when you lose the headache. You know, when you're getting rid of a problem for an organization, I think that in itself is enough to say we won because this problem isn't here, or maybe the fact that we saved some money not having to pay Jimmy Butler. I think your thought on this is pretty interesting, but ultimately, I mean, what do we really feel like the Miami Heat are actually going to be up to with where they're constructed? They don't have a superstar, in my opinion. I love Bam, love Tyler Hero, even love Andrew Wiggins, but they don't have a superstar. So, I mean, ultimately, for me, the Miami Heat, if I were to really give them a grade or a winner or a loser, it'd be undecided. I feel like there's still more to see, in my opinion.
I agree. I think the biggest thing, though, for the Heat, they don't have a superstar, but they realize that. And they understand that you can't get a superstar unless you are in a position to pay a guy or put together draft assets to get a guy, and they didn't take back any salary that goes past the summer of 2026. So the Heat are in a really good spot moving forward, and they always find a way to get guys. I think they're a interesting destination that would have made sense for Luka Doncic had he not been traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. But yeah, you're right. I mean, from that standpoint, that was a toxic situation. It was an untenable situation, and he's in Golden State. I would love to see Golden State versus the Miami Heat and to see how that thing plays out. But look, Jimmy Butler is a guy who's always played with a chip on his shoulder. The Warriors are hopefully going to get the best version of him, especially now that he's paid. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Jimmy Butler start to average over 20 points per game, start to be more engaged. You're going to see that happy version of him. He's going to be hanging out with all those tech dudes in the Bay, trying to probably sell some big face coffee, try to get some things popping from that end. So, look, the Warriors, they're not going to win the championship. I could see them winning a round at the least, though. Now, Brandon Ingram is an interesting one, and I feel bad for him. It really is the meme of the dude holding the shirt with the other shirt. It's the same thing. He's going to one aimless rebuild to another. I mean, after 5.5 seasons with the Pelicans, he gets traded to Toronto for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, a future first-round pick, a future second-round pick. And for the Raptors, Ingram makes sense. He's a buy low guy. He could potentially be a franchise-ish player that you put alongside Scotty Barnes. He has been out since December, but when he's healthy, I mean, he scores. He's lanky. He can facilitate. I mean, you could pretty much plug him into any lineup and he can get you buckets. So I don't hate this move for the Raptors. I do think it'll be interesting to see what they do with him long term. If you look at the Raptors situation, they have around $50 million in cap room. So they got a lot of money to work with, and they're projected to be one of those kind of few teams that could potentially pay a guy. And getting someone like a Brandon Ingram and getting his bird rights, I think makes sense for them because it's not the easiest place to acquire talent. Not a lot of dudes want to go up and play for Toronto. So you got to get your stars any way you can. And you look at this offseason, I mean, there's not a lot of teams out there that are going to have money to spend. You got Toronto, you got Brooklyn, but it's not like Brandon Ingram is going to have his pick of the litter as far as destinations go. So I could see them getting a long-term deal done. I really could. So I like this move. I actually have I have Brandon Ingram and the Toronto Raptors as a winner in all this.
Ironically enough, Doug, I love this trade for the Raptors. Obviously, it's not a win right now move, but the future is bright. I am higher on Scotty Barnes, maybe more than most. I think the tools and the intangibles that he has as a basketball player really make him intriguing to watch over the next few seasons. But I look at it like this. If you have Brandon Ingram, you have Scotty Barnes, and then you have a top 3 pick and you can draft a Dylan Harper as your point guard, I think the Toronto Raptors could be in a situation where they could be scary in the future because unlike most teams, Doug, they're like the Memphis Grizzlies. You got to build this thing within the inside out. You're not going to attract a lot of superstars. You're going to have to draft, and you're going to have to get really lucky in free agency. And Brandon Ingram to the Raptors, I really do love the move for the organization. I'm optimistic for sure.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, look, as it stands right now, Toronto, if the draft for tomorrow, they have the 6th best lottery odds, and with Ingram, you're probably a better team than the Brooklyn Nets right now, who, if they win one more game, they'd be ahead of them in the moment. So we'll see Chicago, they dump some guys. We'll see how they look for the second part of the season. But, I think the Raptors are just in rebuild mode. I really do. And I think that they're trying to do a balance of, can we get stars? Can we sign guys? And who can we get through the draft? So I like the move, too. I think Scotty Barnes, like you said, probably one of the most underrated stars in the sport, but what Toronto lacks is a guy that can make shots in big moments. The Raptors 23rd in clutch shot making in the NBA. If you watch BI throughout his career, he's a guy that can get you a bucket in a big spot. So it's kind of been a weird career for Brandon Ingram, by the way. You get traded to the Lakers. You, of course, are the headliner in the Anthony Davis deal. You come out of Duke. The market's not strong in New Orleans. They get Zion. Zion just, I mean, he just hasn't worked out, to say the least, with the conditioning, and hasn't been able to stay on the floor. So it's been kind of one of those franchises that's really in purgatory. Now, I'll tell you a move that I love. I'll tell you a move that I love. Probably going to go down as one of the most under-the-radar moves that I actually think could help a contender, and that's DeAndre Hunter going to the Cavs, because the Cavs are a fun team to watch. They almost remind me of old school basketball in certain ways, the way they play bigger lineups. You're seeing guys like Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, and now you get DeAndre Hunter, who is averaging 19 points per game coming off the bench in Atlanta. If you look at his shooting percentages, they're off the charts. He can make shots in big spots, but also he gives them that added depth. And you look at what they gave up: Karis LeVert, Georges Niang, and 3 second-round picks and 2 first-round pick swaps. So that's a massive upgrade for a Cavs offense that is one of the most efficient offenses in the sport, picking up an efficient player that brings you versatility. So people aren't going to talk about the Cavs because the Cavs aren't the Lakers and the Cavs aren't the Knicks. Cavs would beat the Knicks in the playoffs if it started tomorrow, in my opinion. I love the Cavs. The defense, the depth, Donovan Mitchell, the big lineups, and then you add DeAndre Hunter, guys averaging almost 20 coming off the bench. So watch out for that move when the playoffs roll around.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing about it is when I look at DeAndre Hunter and this Cavs team, they're one of the few teams that have true positioning. They have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. There's not really too many tweeners in that lineup. When I went to sleep last night, though, Doug, something in my soul told me that Kevin Durant I was going to wake up in the morning, and by 12 p.m., Kevin Durant was going to be a Cleveland Cavalier, because I've always thought they needed an upgrade at the 3 position. I've liked Karis LeVert, but I think if they've been able to upgrade that 3 position, they'll be in a better spot. I like that they got DeAndre Hunter. I think that is an upgrade. I don't know if they're better than the Knicks. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm also a little bit biased, Knicks fan, but I will say this. I am excited about the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think the Eastern Conference playoffs, somebody's getting eliminated that we didn't expect to get eliminated, just because I think there's going to be a lot of dogfights in this Eastern Conference.
I do too. I think that makes the East more viable at the top. It strengthens a contender. The Knicks really had their roster pretty much intact, so they feel good about it. But the Cavs are a team that, I mean, they can flip a roster as well as anyone in the league. So adding a player like that, I think it's massive. Now, yesterday we had on Sam Quinn, and one thing that he told me that really kind of shocked me was he said that, yeah, the Luka trade is going to get all the pub, all the discussion is going to be about that, shocker, but it's the De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs that could ultimately have as much championship impact as anyone. Because look, as much as I love Luka Doncic, and I do, trust me, I bought all the real estate on Luka Island year 1. This is Victor Wembanyama's league probably next year. I mean, he's that good. And you add De'Aaron Fox with the fact that De'Aaron Fox is now a Spur, a perfect fit for Victor Wembanyama. And then you look at what they didn't have to surrender. They didn't have to give up any of their promising young players. They kept Stephon Castle. They kept Jeremy Sacramento. They kept Devin Vassell. They have an all-star point guard with Victor Wembanyama. And then they still have the Hawks' first-round pick this year, and it looks like the Hawks now are going to the lottery. So asset management-wise, the Spurs have been as good as any team in the association. You hit on the generational big of all generational bigs, and it's only a matter of time. It's another reason why I thought that the Lakers were extremely wise to go out there and spend big to make sure that you can contend this season, because Victor Wembanyama might take this league and never give it back. That's how good and how dominant he is. And you pair him with De'Aaron Fox, I think that was a tremendous move for San Antonio. I give that a big win.
San Antonio as well. I mean, when I look at the young core, UConn alum, I love Stephon Castle. For me, going into this draft, he was my number 1 player. I thought he should have been the first player selected. That backcourt of him and De'Aaron Fox, that they're going to be a movie in the future. And Godzilla in this movie is Victor Wembanyama.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited for their future. Now, am I willing to say that the league is Victor Wembanyama's yet? I don't know, Doug, because between SGA, Luka Doncic, we still got to see Anthony Edwards. The West is still as loaded as it get with young talent. So I don't want to give it to him yet. And God forbid, what if Cooper Flag is up in Portland? AJ DeBonsta. There's going to be a lot of monsters on their way to this Western Conference, but the future is easily bright, and the assets are there to, even if they wanted to make a win now move next season, they have the ability to do so.
No doubt about it. And like I said, it's not his league yet, but once he gets, I don't think he's giving it back. I mean, this is the Joker's league, and I mean, we'll see. I mean, Luka looks great, man. My man, the dude, like, I don't know if he looks like he lost like 15 pounds overnight. I mean, that LA lifestyle, I don't know what it was, but he's looking slim and trim, and we'll see what it is. But the other thing I want to talk about, too, is the Wizards. And the Wizards are another team that no one watches, no one cares about. They trade Kyle Kuzma and Jonas Valanciunas. They took on the contracts of Marcus Smart, Chris Middleton, Alex Len, and they came away with 2 first-round picks, a pick swap. They ended up down 3 second-round picks. They could keep Smart as a veteran leader, possibly for next season, or trade him, possibly. They could have done that. They didn't do that. They could move on from him, but I think it's funny. You saw the ESPN graphic. They posted the new duo in Washington, right? Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart. So a shout out to the admin for ESPN for that one. But I mean, I think that's a great job for a tanking team. For the Wizards, tank, and tank some more. That is how you go about getting a star.
I feel like I was in 8th grade, man.
How else are you getting a star, man?
I know you're right, but my thing is, what is their path? Like, my issue with the Wizards is, Doug, it is such a mess. It's so discombobulated that I just, like, if you told me to look into a glass for the Wizards in 10 years, we can go into 2035, Doug, and I still are going to feel like we're going to be having a conversation about the Wizards tanking and their future being bright, because I just don't know where they're going. And I truly can't see the light at the end of the tunnel when we talk about the Washington Wizards. I just don't, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's hilarious though. I mean, the fact they called them something special.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
that's
the Marcus Smart, Chris Middleton duo. Like, what is that doing for the Wizards?
I mean, hey man, if you're a Wizards fan, I mean, going from Kuzma and Poole to Smart and Middleton, I mean, that's an elite duo right there. I mean, who's stopping those guys? I mean, right. For sure. I mean, when I call those guys the duo that's going to help them in the flag sweepstakes. I mean, that to me is what it's all about for them. Cooper Flag going to Washington. Now, next, let's go to a loser, and let's talk about the Phoenix Suns. I can't wrap my head around the Phoenix Suns because they were the team that looked like it was only a matter of time that they were going to get Jimmy Butler. Their GM made it very well known that he was one of the few teams that was willing to extend him. And then as a result, they start shopping Kevin Durant. They did it unsuccessfully to the Golden State Warriors, to the Miami Heat. And then now you have a Kevin Durant who's already an emotional player, one of the best clapback social media guys in the history that we've ever seen. And now you have a Kevin Durant that you kind of have to repair some things with. And they end up settling for 2 different trades. I mean, they got Nurkic, their 2026 first round pick, and the 2 seconds to get Nick Richards. I mean, you look at some of these moves they made, you basically mortgage some of your future ahead of the deadline, and you get 3 first round picks that are going to be late first round picks, and you did that to help make some deadline deals, and then nothing really comes of it. So I think that trade could be a potential disaster because you didn't get what you were hoping to get, and then you alienate your stars in the process. What are they doing in Phoenix? What are you doing, bro? I can't make sense of it. Phoenix is done now.
And honestly, the front office, they're victims of their own hubris and pride and ego because they did too much. They saw that Bradley Beal with Doug. Everybody knew that contract was a disaster. No trade clause for Bradley Beal. You're still going to go all in and bring him in. Didn't really make sense fit-wise alongside Kevin Durant and Devin Booker because what he does great is score the basketball, and then you have 2 great scorers already. It's just not enough basketball for that trio. Then you try to bring in a point guard because everybody told you to bring in a point guard. my issue with the Phoenix Suns is you can't be a front office when you're getting bullied by fans on X of what to do with your team. It's a disaster in Phoenix. They are the biggest losers. They should have traded Kevin Durant and try to recoup as much as they could, maybe even considering saving Devin Booker from his own loyalty and putting him in a spot to contend on the championship and recoup as many first rounds as you could get from that. But ultimately, when I look at the Phoenix Suns, if it wasn't for the talent that they had with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, I'd be looking at them a lot like the Wizards in Washington from a standpoint of I just don't know where you guys are going to be in a decade. It doesn't look like the future is bright at all.
Yeah, no, the sun is not shining down in Phoenix,
No,
if we're being completely honest. Now, another loser I have to throw out, and this one is definitely a major head scratcher, is what are you doing, Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, the Grizzlies, they were engaged with the Heat on Jimmy Butler. Up until the buzzer, they were engaged with the Suns about Kevin Durant, and they made their team worse to try to save some money, while the Lakers and the Spurs, teams that are kind of around where they're at in their conference, they got better. They end up trading Marcus Smart, Jake LaVarvia, and 2 different deals, and you get a first-round pick, 2 lottery busts in Marvin Bagley, Johnny Davis, and then 18 months ago, they ended up trading Tyus Jones and 2 firsts to get Smart. Now they've traded another first just to get rid of Marcus Smart. Bad business in Memphis. Doesn't make any sense. They were supposed to be a contender. Ja Morant is supposed to really have that comeback year and be relevant in the playoffs again. I don't understand. I'd be very, very frustrated if I was Ja Morant and that Memphis squad that has shown some promise this season.
Memphis is another team where a lot different from the other two. They do still have a bright future because they have Ja Morant, Zach Edey. I'll say they got rid of Marcus Smart because they didn't see Scottie Pippen Jr. coming. I'm just going to assume that about why they were able to move him. However, when I look at Memphis overall, love Jaren Jackson. I think Desmond Bane's a good player too. But they need one more real star. They need a star to pair with Ja Morant to really take them over the hump. Obviously, Ja Morant missing some game has been a bit of difficulties for them. However, the Memphis Grizzlies as a whole, I mean, they didn't get any better after the trade deadline. And that's my thing. When I look at teams that are contenders, Doug, my question is, if you're going to make a trade at the trade deadline and you're a team that has championship aspirations in that specific season, did you actually give yourself a shot to be closer to that title? And the Memphis Grizzlies did not do that.
I totally agree. I really, really do. I mean, I like Jay LaRivia, but, I mean, what are they doing down there? And now I'll give you another loser, too, and this was I saw this on Twitter. Of course, there's a writer named Tim McMahon for ESPN. I don't know if you saw this. Tim McMahon, one of the best NBA writers, insiders out there, covers the Dallas Mavericks. He spent the last year writing a book about Luka Doncic and his time with the Mavericks. He's just about to release this book, and then he's a Laker. You got to feel bad for that dude. I mean, maybe give an advanced copy to like A.J. Brown. He can read it this week before it comes out or something. But, I mean, you got to feel bad for Tim McMahon out there.
At least he could put a phenomenal conclusion at the end of the book. He could put a crazy ending at the end of that book. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it sucks because he's
exactly.
Not there
I mean,
anymore.
I think that's what I would do. I'd be like, hey, because you already turned it in,
yeah,
right? If I was the publisher, but hey, I need that back, bro. I need some. Can I get some overtime? Can we send that book into overtime for sure? But
adjustments on it.
All right, so let's end the show with this though. Okay, after the deadline, who do you got in the finals? You got the winner. I'll start first. Based on Luka going to the Lakers to save the league, I think the scriptwriters are cooking. I think what they want is Lakers, not Celtics. I think they want Lakers-Knicks.
Okay.
Lakers-Knicks. Let's go Lakers-Knicks. Luka Finals MVP. Lakers get banner 18 this season. I know it sounds crazy. Yes, there's teams out there like the Thunder that should be a team that scares a team like the Lakers, but I just don't think there's anyone in the West that's going to scare Luka Doncic and LeBron James. And they're going to have to create that chemistry on the fly. You're going to need Mark Williams to stay healthy and continue to emerge. Austin Reeves is your third best player now, which I think is going to bode well for what they're trying to do. Vando's got to stay healthy. Gabe's contributing at this point. Gabe Vincent. JJ Redick is a first-year head coach, but Give me Lakers over the Knicks in the NBA Finals. Luka Doncic, Finals MVP.
I'm taking the Lakers to go to the finals. I think the best duo in basketball is Luka Doncic and LeBron James. I actually don't even think it's close to the best duo in basketball is. And I think the roster now really solidifies those two and what they're capable of doing. You got shooters, you got wings that can defend, and now you have two lob threat big men in Mark Williams and Jackson Hayes who can do the PNR stuff that you're looking for. On the East, I would love to pick the Knicks growing up as a diehard Knicks fan, but I'm going to go with the Boston Celtics in a Boston Celtics Lakers clash in the finals. But with that being said, I am also taking the Los Angeles Lakers, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, to go out there. Really, I don't even want to say shock the world, because if they won the championship together, it'd be, I mean, I think we all could believe it. So I'm going to take the Lakers. I'm going to take LeBron James, though, as the finals MVP, just because he's the greatest second option I've ever seen, if you think about it. Because who's going to stop him?
Yeah, no, Jordan was never a second option on any of his teams. I'll point that out. I want to make that certain here. But yeah, absolutely. I love it. But that's going to do it for this episode of The Big League, guys. If you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. Hit the like button. Drop all your comments down below. Who are your biggest winners and losers for the NBA trade deadline? And until next time, I'm out.